Support comes from Missouri Forest Products Association, committed to sustainable and sound conservation of the state's forests, which support more than 41,000 Missouri jobs, resulting in a $10 billion industry. ChooseWood.com.
This is St. Louis on the Air from St. Louis Public Radio. I'm Elaine Cha.
He not only taught me the music, he taught me how to live the life.
When we sit down to play music, he immediately touches his violin, and then he touches his forehead and his heart.
He kissed it and handed it back to me, and I'm like, wow, this is...
I just feel this overwhelming sense of welcomeness and openness.
It's just that it just frames the whole performance in a different way.
Before, there was no written script. Mm-hmm. We have to sit with him, and what he is teaching, we have to listen and remembering it.
As a musician, I've always been fascinated by music that is not on the page.
We are sharing our music, sharing our philosophy, sharing our culture.
The violin is an instrument we often associate with Western classical music, but it's also the instrument of choice for one particular musician, Rupam Ghosh, who plays classical music from North India. He's here in St. Louis for a limited time to share that music as well as his approach to musicianship. It's part of a tour that includes performances with Violition, an ensemble that brings jazz and Hindustani music onto the same stage. Joining me in studio to talk about it is Rupam Ghosh, Hindustani violinist and Violition ensemble player. Welcome.
Thank you.
And Matt Pickert, violinist and professor of music at Webster University. Welcome to you.
Great to be here.
Thank you both for joining us today. Now, to put us in the right space for this conversation, Rupam, may we have you start us with a mantra?
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
तत्पुरुषाय विद्महे महादेवाय धीमहि तन्नो रुद्र प्रचोदयात्। ॐ नमस्ते अस्तु भगवन् विश्वेश्वराय महादेवाय त्र्यम्बकाय त्रिपुरन्तकाय त्रिकग्निकालाय कालग्निरुद्राय नीलकण्ठाय मृत्युञ्जयाय सर्वेश्वराय सदाशिवाय श्रीमन्महादेवाय नमः। हरि ओम शांति शांति शांति।
Thank you.
Thank you.
Rupam, can you translate what that mantra was?
This is the prayer of Shiva, actually. This is called Shiva Gayatri, which if you do it every day, then you maybe not get any disease, and it will help you to solve all problems and hazards in your life.
Okay. So it's like a protection.
Yes.
And right. Now, I will tell you that preparing for this conversation, this is really my first encounter with North Indian classical music. So there's very much
my
that
pleasure.
I don't know. Can you talk about the main ways that that it is different from Western classical music or from other classical music in India?
In India, only one classical music,
Okay.
which is North Indian, and there is another one in the southern part of India. This is called Carnatic music. But in North Indian music is totally different from other music because it is, like generation after generation, it goes through from the master to his disciples, like this way. Like we have now it is in book called Veda. Veda is also taught by, just by listening in the beginning. So Indian music is also like that. We have to learn from my master in front of our master. We have to sit with him, and what he is teaching, we have to listen and remembering it. And before, there was no written script.
So that seems very appropriate for the medium we're using right now with radio.
Yeah.
And the relationship that you're talking about between the teacher and the disciple certainly sounds like it is fully immersive. Like you must be fully
Absolutely.
involved in it.
Absolutely.
Now, the mantra that you started with, part of the reason we decided to begin in that way is that the violin performance that I got to see from last year, that's how it started. So it seemed appropriate to begin
Yeah.
in that fashion. The violin is the instrument that you play, and perhaps the most well-known Indian instrument, at least here in the States, is the sitar.
Yeah.
Now, you're well known, though, for Hindustani music played on the violin. How did you come to play that particular instrument?
It is actually my father was playing violin. So from the beginning, from the childhood, I listening violin. And then I loved to play it also. Then my father took me to his master. And this way it started actually.
So that generational sort
Yes.
of interchange there.
Yeah.
And what is it about the training that you received for the violin is important for people to understand, not just about your music, but about the place that it has in your life?
Yeah, of course. In the beginning, I was a disciple of Professor Rupam Ghosh. And from my childhood, I started to learn from him. And we had a really relationship with like son and father. He not only taught me the music, he taught me how to live the life. And this way we had spent a long time. And after when I was in the university, he was also there as a professor. So we had a big relationship and a lot of, stories and.
Now, Matt, you were not raised in the same way musically. What is it about what Rupam has been talking about strikes you either as somewhat familiar or very different?
Yeah, so I'll touch on something you asked earlier. What are some of the main differences between Indian classical music and Western European classical music? So violin is strongly associated with the Western European classical canon. And the thing about that music is it's mostly all in written tradition. Almost every other musical culture in the world is an oral tradition, that you hear it by listening. And as a musician myself, I've always been fascinated by music that is not on the page and trying to explore many other styles. Some similarities with Rupam is generational. I'm the son of two cellists and retired music educators, the grandson of a music educator. So I also started violin at a young age, at 3, by Suzuki method, which is an oral tradition. So,
Okay.
Yeah.
And is this information that you all have exchanged previously?
We're always learning new things about each other.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you mentioned the show that you saw in the fall at Focal Point. We actually met 2 days before that.
Oh, okay.
This is a very new group, and we're very
Yeah.
excited about the future of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, as a sort of a warm up to what people may experience when they see you all play together, rags or raga
Yeah.
are central to North Indian classical music. Rupam, tell us, what is a rag and how is it played?
Yeah. Raga is not only a combination of notes. If it is a raga, then you should have some rules, maintain some rules. That, in every raga, there should be some specific ascending, descending. As here in Western music, they are telling do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, si, do. And we are calling sa, re, ga, ma, pa, dha, ni, sa. And every raga, there should be a specific note, which we call it vadi swar. Swar means note. And vadi swar is the most important note of raga.
Okay.
We have to maintain that. There is another important note, we call it samvadi. It is less than vadi, but also very important note. We have to maintain these rules, and every raga should have a beautiful name. And ragas, in a short way, I want to say you that ragas are set all over the day, from early morning to late night. And also there are some seasonal ragas.
Spring season is upon us here.
Yeah.
Now, before we move further, let's hear a raga from a violin performance last year. And there's an interesting connection that you make, as Matt has a closing remark there at the end that we'll pick up on.
This has been an amazing experience for us to learn from Rupam.
Yeah, no, not learning, we are sharing just.
So that was part of a raga that our guest today, Rupam Ghosh, Hindustani violinist and violin ensemble player, and Matt Pickard, Webster University professor and violin ensemble player, that you all did together with your group. Now, that was part of a raga that you played last year. And at the end there, Rupam, you said, not learn, but share, right? Can you tell us why it is not learning? Or if we put it another way, why shouldn't we call what you are doing with your music teaching?
Yeah, I told it to Matt only because he is an excellent and expert violinist. And that's why I told him that you are not learning from me. We are sharing our music, sharing our philosophy, sharing our culture.
Thank you, Rupam. You're very kind.
No, it's true.
And Matt, you are the one who brought the ensemble together that makes up Violition. There are our 4 members, as we mentioned. What inspired the idea to put something like this together?
Rupam Ghosh. Actually, we have to give credit where credit's due. I want to definitely give a shout out to Mike Parkinson,
Yes.
who was the
We
chair
are
of
grateful to
Webster
him.
Department of Music long before I was there. We met at a summer camp in Tennessee, where he was dean of the Middle Tennessee State University. I was working at Tennessee Governor School for the Arts before I moved here. And Rupam Ghosh got in touch with him through mutual contact and said, I want to come to St. Louis and make music. And Mike gave him my name.
Okay.
And I went to school with Sebastian. We were doing our doctorate at the same time at Michigan State.
Okay.
We were actually playing a Mahler symphony together. He was playing the big box. I was the principal violist. And I knew that he also played tabla. And Ben has been a wonderful colleague since I've come to Webster in St. Louis, and is an amazing jazz bass player and great guy. And it's just been a great mix of musicians and people. Yeah.
And those other ensemble members are Sebastian Boots, as well as Ben Wheeler.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. Violition, is it a mashup term? What does it mean?
I guess, did I come up with the name? We were
Yes.
thinking of a
Yeah,
name for
please.
a while. And I thought about one of the things that I will say this again, that I've learned from you, Rupam, is to be more open. And we talk a lot about the vision of things and how to see things and how to be open. So, and we both play violin. So violin and vision, right?
Oh, okay.
Violition.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's an elision as well
Right.
with the words.
Yeah.
And then let's talk a bit about what it's been like for you and other musicians in the ensemble. You've kind of mentioned a little bit here what it's been like to work with Rupam. Fellow Violition bandmate Ben Wheeler recalls one of the first interactions he had with you, Rupam.
One of the first experiences I had with Rupam at the rehearsal last time he was in town was I was unpacking my bass and I dropped my rosin, the stuff you put on the bow, in just little red case, and he picked it up and I think he kissed his hand and touched it, or he kissed it and handed it back to me, and I'm like, wow, this is just some rosin, but I thought that was a little different. And you take off your shoes when you go to play on the stage. He'll take his violin, he'll open the case. He's sitting down, and he'll open the case and he'll kiss it and say a little prayer to himself, and it's just it just frames the whole performance in a different way.
And we also heard this from violin tabla player Sebastian Boots, and he expands upon Rupam's approach to and attitude toward playing.
When we sit down to play music, he immediately touches his violin, and then he touches his forehead and his heart. Yeah, it just reminds me to be more mindful and thankful for the opportunity to make music with one another. It allows the entire performance to just be almost meditative and reflective. And I think that's really beautiful and allows us to communicate on a much deeper level.
So that was Sebastian Boots, and then before that was Ben Wheeler. Matt, do their comments resonate with you? And in what ways would you say this ensemble, sort of in its composition, its approach, the focus, the music itself, how is it more than just a mashup or a fusion of genres?
Yes, the words of both Sebastian and Ben very much resonate with me, and I'm very grateful for this opportunity to make music with my friends and to have met Rupam and to be able to share music with him and learn from him, learning from each other.
Yeah.
As I said, since high school, really, I've always been interested in other styles of music. I in college played a lot of bluegrass on the street. During graduate school, I started to get more into jazz and blues. I've done some indie rock. Right now, I'm currently in a mariachi group. I played with klezmer.
Okay.
A little bit of tango. I always I find myself excited to learn more and to experience new music, new culture, and it informs my musicianship in many ways. Still, my main kind of bread and butter is classical, but every other approach I take, it informs that. And this has been a completely new, rejuvenating, energizing experience making music with Rupam. And especially playing in other styles of music, I think that the violin can sometimes be, I don't know what the right word is for it, but I'm welcomed a lot in the jazz scene because I play violin.
Okay.
Not
sure.
necessarily because I'm a great jazz musician, because I know great jazz musicians.
Sure.
And I, experiences in my life, sometimes I feel like, I'm trying something, but maybe I don't really belong here. But ever since I started to make music with Rupam, I just feel this overwhelming sense of welcomeness and openness. And he's always encouraging you and encouraging our fellow musicians to keep sharing and to try different things, and that there are no mistakes, and that whatever we play is wonderful. And this last week, we humbly asked Rupam, because we've been very focused on the ragas. So this last week I said, what if Ben shares some jazz? And then we incorporated a little bit of Bach with some of the raga as well. So it's been great.
Oh, that's cool.
To be able to share and to feel open and welcome to do that all the time.
Well, and given what you had said and what you both have shared about the difference between Hindustani music and it's not written, and then sort of the strictures that come with having to follow a score, that makes a lot of sense. I've heard that jazz is known as music for musicians. It's also known for improvisation. What about North Indian classical music? And this group of violin sort of makes these things come together really well. How do you feel about that, Rupam?
Actually, jazz music also, as you told, that there is a lot of improvisations. And I played in Europe also a lot of time with jazz musicians. So it is my always, always I am trying to explore new music and collaborate with new kind of music. So it is always in my mind. That's why I'm trying with, because Matt is a really great classical violinist, also jazz violinist. So I never tried with European classical music. So let's try with European classical music.
So it's something new.
Yeah.
The other thing that struck me, Matt, about the genres of music that you've been able to play, and before we got to the segment, you had said you were here for about 5 years. There's a lot of diversity in St. Louis that people don't necessarily recognize. Why did you want to come to St. Louis, Rupam? And is that diversity sort of part of the reason that you wanted to come to this city?
Truly, because, I want to share this music, this culture, this philosophy to the new generation. Because while traveling all over the world, I am seeing the serious aggression and, the restlessness of the youth. So I am trying to spread the Indian music, because Indian music has that power to make them establish the peace and love.
Mm-hmm. Is that something you felt?
Oh, very much so.
In your
Very much
relative
so.
youth?
And I just wanted to touch on something earlier. I don't know how many listeners out there are aware of this, but something that's so amazing for violin is actually it comes from a very improvisational tradition. So up until really Beethoven's time, improvisation was a huge part of classical music. Yeah.
Well, you will be performing together pretty soon. I think there are a couple that are on the calendar. We will be sharing about those on our website at stlonair.show. Matt Pickard is violinist and professor of music at Webster University and violin member. And Rupam Ghosh is a Hindustani violinist and violin ensemble player, and the reason this all has come together. Violin performs this Thursday night in the lounge above O'Connell's pub, known as Jack's Joint. It's open to the public and a donation is encouraged but not required. There is more info about that, as we mentioned, at stlonair.show. This is St. Louis on the Air on St. Louis Public Radio.
This episode was produced by Aaron Dorr.
With audio engineering and podcast design by Aaron.
Our production intern is Avery Rogers.
Our executive producer is Alex Hoyer.
St. Louis on the Air is a production of St. Louis Public Radio. Understanding starts here.
Our podcast proudly supports St. Louis artists by using music from Life Creative Group.
Do you find yourself regularly listening to episodes of St. Louis on the Air? Suggest us to a friend you think might enjoy our conversations, and leave us a review and rating on Apple Podcasts on the App Store. It's the simplest way to help people discover our show. Thank you.
St. Louis Public Radio is a member-supported service of the University of Missouri St. Louis.
Support comes from the Missouri Forest Products Association. Missouri produces wood pallets, railroad ties, white oak barrels, hardwood floors, and more. Details on the variety of products made in the state are at choosewood.com.